Well, hello again, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for stopping by once again, and we're going to move on into the next part of our notes. This is called "The War is Over. Now What?" We just got done talking about how Washington was selected to be the commander of the army, and after about 8 years of fighting, the British finally give up. We're not going to go into the particular battles because that is not part of our standards, in eighth grade, but um, a lot of interesting battles took place in the war, and I would encourage you to go and learn about some of these battles because they're pretty interesting. The Battle of Trenton, Battle of Saratoga, um, the Battle of Long Island, the last one, the Battle of Yorktown, and learn about these battles because it's really interesting stuff. And I'm kind of sorry that we can't go into detail about these particular battles because they are quite interesting. How Washington was able to protect us and keep the army alive and survive until British finally gave up after 8 years of fighting. So they finally give up and we get our independence. So now the question is, what kind of government are we going to create? We know we're going to create a democracy, but we need to have some kind of guidelines, some kind of set of rules to follow. And what kind of rules was the government going to follow? So we got together and we created what's called the Articles of Confederation. This was our very first rule book, and we don't know too much about the Articles. I mean, we don't talk about the Articles of Confederation that much, mainly because it didn't work. A lot of problems with this very first rule book. It was like a rough draft, like a trial to see if it was going to work or not, and it turned out that it didn't work. Now, why didn't it work? Well, let's talk about it. Here are the basic rules. Each state gets one vote, which is, seems fair in the beginning, but when you think about it, problem was some of these bigger states were complaining that they got just as much power as the smaller states, which to them seemed unfair because they had so many people in their state compared to these little tiny states like Rhode Island, who didn't have that many, and yet they both had equal amount of power in the Congress. And so the bigger states were complaining, and they wanted like more votes because they had more people to talk about or to deal with. So they said we should have more votes, and the little states said no, 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 no. One vote, you can't have more power just because you're bigger. So there's a lot of problems with that. Another thing, to pass a law, you had to have 9 states to agree. Now, yeah, again, it seems real easy to think about that and to understand 9 states. You pass a law, 9 states have to agree. But the problem is, it's kind of hard to get nine people to agree on anything. You know, we can get 9 students and say we have a choice of ice cream, we have a choice of vanilla, and we have a choice of chocolate. We can't have both. We can only have one, but you all gotta agree on that one. Imagine how long it would take to get all 9 students to agree. It would be impossible because one person would want to have chocolate and would not take no for an answer, and someone else would do the same for vanilla. So same thing was happening with the country, with the Articles of Confederation. We wanted to pass a law, a very important law for one thing or another, and we had to have 9 people agree. It never got done. So what was happening? Yeah, nothing was getting done in the government. No laws were getting passed. So that was a problem. And another thing was the government could not force the state to do anything. The government didn't have a lot of power. And they did this on purpose because they had just got done fighting a war 8 years because the government that they were under at the time, England, had too much power and they were abusing their power. So when they created this new government, they wanted to make sure that didn't happen. So they created the rule book that said the federal government does not have a lot of power. More power goes to the states. So when the federal government says we need this, we need that, they would have to ask nicely. They would have to ask the states to support them or to give money or to provide whatever the government needed, and they couldn't force the states to do anything. So when the government doesn't have a lot of power, there's a problem. And again, they wanted a government with no power because they didn't want to turn into England again. We just got done fighting England. We didn't want to become another England, so let's not give power to the government. That was another first rule book. You can already see how things are not going to be working out too well. They created what's called a League of Friendship. League of Friendship. This is where all the states got together and they said, okay, we promise to help out the government. If the government needs anything, just call us. We are friends. We're all friends. We're all going to work together to make this country work. So they all agreed and made a promise. I promise to help the government if the government needs help. Each state said, I promise, we promise to help the government if they need help. Well, the problem was when it came time for the government to ask for the help that was promised to them by the states said, nah, right now is not a good time. And they wouldn't fulfill their promise. They wouldn't keep their promise. And we all know how it feels when someone doesn't keep their promise. So that wasn't working. But probably the biggest problem that they had was the fact that the government could not tax. I mean, the whole revolution really started because of taxation. We didn't want to have taxation without representation. We didn't want to have all these taxes put on us by the government. So we made it a part of the rule book, that very first rule book called what? Yeah, the Articles of Confederation. We made it a rule book that the government did not have the power to tax. Now, why do you think that was going to cause problems? Because if the government needed money to build a bridge or pay the teachers or pay for a fire department or police department, where were they going to get the money? Well, they were going to ask help from the states because we were all friends. We were part of a league of friendship. But what happened? Yeah, the states couldn't do it. The states couldn't or didn't want to help out. They broke their promise. And since there was no other money coming in because we couldn't tax, what happened? Yeah, the country was going broke. Nowadays, we have taxes pulled out of our check without us even knowing about it. You work 20 hours a week, you get paid a certain amount per hour. You expect to get, whatever you're getting paid times the 20 hours you work. That's you're supposed to be in your paycheck. But if you notice, and you'll notice as you get a job, that's not the case. The government takes money out of your paycheck to pay for the fire department, to pay for the police department, to pay for the school, to pay the teachers. Your parents work, and part of their check goes to pay the teachers, goes to pay Mr. Rangel. So make sure you tell your parents I said thank you, thank you. So this was causing problems in the country. We were having a lot of violence. We had different